Have you ever stared at a blank page, terrified to write the first sentence? You tell yourself it has to be brilliant, it has to be perfect. So you wait, and you wait. The cursor blinks, mocking you. That blinking light becomes a symbol of your stuckness. The pressure builds until you finally close the laptop and walk away, promising you'll try again tomorrow when you feel more inspired. This isn't just about writing, it's about the business plan that never leaves your notebook, the painting you're afraid to start, or the difficult conversation you keep putting off. It's the quiet shame of the unfinished dream, gathering dust in the corner of your heart. This isn't a lack of talent or a lack of desire. It's something deeper. It's the voice of the inner critic, that loud, relentless heckler in the cheap seats of our minds. This voice whispers that if it can't be perfect, it shouldn't be done at all. It tells us that our worth is tied directly to our performance. So we armor up. We try to control every outcome, polish every detail, and anticipate every possible criticism. We become so focused on avoiding judgment that we forget the joy of creating, the thrill of trying, and the simple, beautiful messiness of being human. We think this armor will protect us, but it's really a cage. Think about all the projects you've started with so much passion, only to abandon them halfway through. The initial excitement fades, replaced by a gnawing anxiety. You start noticing every tiny flaw. That one brushstroke is wrong. That line of code isn't elegant enough. That business proposal has a single weak point. Instead of seeing these as normal parts of the process, the perfectionist sees them as signs of total failure. The project becomes a monument to your supposed inadequacy, and it feels safer to just let it go than to see it through and have it judged as anything less than flawless. This self-criticism is exhausting. It drains our energy and steals our joy. We become our own worst bullies, replaying our mistakes over and over. We believe the lie that if we could just be perfect, we would finally be safe from shame, blame, and judgment. But perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist in the real world. It's an unattainable goal that keeps us on a treadmill of striving and never arriving. It keeps us small, hidden, and disconnected from our own creative spirit. The blank page stays blank and our potential remains locked away, all because we are too afraid to be imperfect. It's so important that we get this right. We have to understand what perfectionism truly is. So often we confuse it with healthy striving or the pursuit of excellence. We wear our perfectionism like a badge of honor, saying things like, "I'm just a perfectionist," as if it's a charming flaw. But that's not what it is. Perfectionism is not about being our best selves. It's not about reaching for the stars and feeling proud of our effort. It's a defense mechanism. It's a heavy shield we carry, hoping it will protect us from the pain of being seen as flawed or unworthy. Let's be clear. Perfectionism is not the key to success. In fact, research shows that it often gets in the way of achievement. It's a 20-ton shield that we lug around, thinking it will protect us, when in reality, it's the thing that's slowing us down. It's driven by a simple, powerful belief. If I look perfect, live perfectly, and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize shame, judgment, and blame. It is a belief that is, at its core, rooted entirely in fear. Fear of failing, fear of making mistakes, fear of being seen for who we really are, wonderfully, beautifully imperfect. Healthy striving, on the other hand, is self-focused. It's about asking, how can I improve? It's about being better today than we were yesterday. Perfectionism is other-focused. It's about asking, what will they think? This is a critical distinction. When we strive for excellence, we are energized by the process. We can enjoy the journey and learn from our setbacks. When we are trapped in perfectionism, we are paralyzed by the fear of what others will say. The joy is gone, replaced by a constant low-grade anxiety that we will be found out as frauds. So the next time you hear yourself saying, "I'm just a perfectionist," I want you to pause. I want you to get curious about what's really going on. What are you afraid of? What judgment are you trying to avoid? True excellence is born from courage, not from fear. It comes from showing up, trying, failing, and getting back up again. It's about being vulnerable enough to say, I don't know how this will turn out, but I'm going to give it my all. Perfectionism, on the other hand, tells us not to even try unless we are guaranteed a flawless outcome. It's a trap that keeps us from living a wholehearted life. One of the most damaging parts of the perfectionist mindset is something we call all or nothing thinking. It's a brutal way to see the world. In this worldview, things are either a spectacular success or a complete and utter failure. There is no middle ground. There's no room for good enough. You either get a perfect score, or you have failed. You either stick to your diet perfectly, or you have blown it and might as well eat the entire cake. This black and white thinking is a recipe for anxiety and disappointment, because life rarely, if ever, operates in absolutes. This all-or-nothing mindset turns every task into a high-stakes performance. Instead of seeing a project as a series of small, manageable steps, we see it as one giant, terrifying leap. If we can't guarantee that we will land it perfectly, we feel it's better not to jump at all. This is where procrastination sets in. Procrastination isn't about being lazy. It's often a coping mechanism for the overwhelming fear of not meeting our own impossibly high standards. The anxiety becomes so great that we freeze. We get stuck in what experts call paralysis by analysis, overthinking every detail until we are too exhausted and overwhelmed to act. Think about it. If you believe that your first draft of an essay has to be a masterpiece, you'll never write the first sentence. The pressure is just too immense. But what if you gave yourself permission to write a crappy first draft? What if you told yourself that the goal was just to get ideas on the page, knowing you could edit and refine them later? Suddenly, the task feels less daunting. The fear subsides, and you can begin begins. The all-or-nothing trap convinces us that the first step must be perfect. But the truth is, the first step just needs to be taken. This way of thinking also robs us of the ability to celebrate progress. If the only acceptable outcome is perfection, then anything short of that feels like a failure. We don't acknowledge the small wins along the way. We finished a chapter, but we focus on the 2 typos we found. We ran a 5K, but we're upset that our time wasn't what we hoped for. We are constantly moving the goalposts, ensuring that we never feel a sense of satisfaction or accomplishment. This is a cruel and unsustainable way to live. We have to learn to see the value in progress, not just perfection. There's a wonderful story that, honestly, just perfectly illustrates the problem with perfectionism. So, it's about a pottery teacher who divided his class into 2 groups on the very first day. He told the group on the left side of the studio that they would be graded solely on the quantity of work they produced. On the last day of class, he would weigh their pots. 50 pounds of pots would get an A, 40 pounds a B, and so on. The group on the right side, however, would be graded on quality. They only needed to produce 1 single pot, but it had to be perfect. As the semester unfolded, a really fascinating dynamic emerged. The quantity group got busy right away. They just churned out pot after pot, making a huge mess in the process. They experimented with different shapes and sizes. Their early work was lumpy and uneven, but honestly, they weren't worried at all. They just kept working, learning from their mistakes as they went along. They'd center the clay, it would collapse, and then they'd scoop it up and start again. Each attempt taught them something new about the feel of the clay, the speed of the wheel, and the right amount of water to use. Meanwhile, the quality group sat in deep thought. They spent their time theorizing about what made a perfect pot. They studied books on glazing techniques, researched ideal forms, and debated the aesthetics of a perfect curve. They were so focused on crafting the ultimate masterpiece that really they were afraid to even get their hands dirty. They were just paralyzed by the ideal of perfection. A few of them made some attempts, but they would quickly get discouraged by the flaws and start over, trying to get it right from the very beginning. They were so afraid of producing an imperfect pot. On the final day of class, the teacher revealed a surprising result. The highest quality pots, the most beautiful, well-crafted, and technically impressive pieces, all came from the quantity group. While the quality group had been stuck in theory, the quantity group had been practicing. They had honed their skills through repetition, failure, and learning. By making 100 pots, they had learned more about how to create a great pot than the other group had learned by just thinking about it. The lesson is clear. Quality is a byproduct of quantity. The courage to be a beginner and make a lot of imperfect things is what ultimately leads to mastery. So, how do we break free from this trap? How do we silence that inner critic and start living a more courageous, creative life? One of the most powerful tools I've found is what I call the 70% rule. It's a simple but honestly transformative practice. Instead of aiming for a mythical 100% on every task, give yourself permission to aim for 70%. This doesn't mean you stop caring or start doing sloppy work. It means you do a solid good job and then you let it go. You ship the project, you send the email, you publish the blog post. This practice is about shifting our focus from performance to learning. When we are stuck in a performance mindset, every task feels like a test that we can pass or fail. Our worth feels like it's on the line, but when we adopt a learning mindset, every task becomes an opportunity to grow. Mistakes are no longer signs of failure, they're data. They're valuable information that helps us get better. Instead of asking, was I perfect? We can ask, what did I learn? And how can I apply that learning next time? This simple shift in perspective can change everything. Embracing imperfection is an act of bravery. It's about being willing to show up and be seen, even when we can't control the outcome. It's about choosing courage over comfort. It's about knowing that we are worthy of love and belonging right now, as we are. Not at some future date when we finally become perfect. Our imperfections are not inadequacies. They are reminders that we're all in this together. The messy, complicated, and imperfect parts of our lives are often what connect us to others most deeply. They are the source of our empathy, compassion, and humanity. So today, I invite you to be brave. I invite you to stare down that blank page and write one messy, imperfect sentence. Start that project you've been dreaming about, even if you don't know how it will end. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. Make a lot of lumpy pots. Embrace the 70% rule and let good enough be your new mantra. Because the world doesn't need you to be perfect. The world needs you to show up with your whole heart, share your unique gifts, and be brave enough to try. Your potential is not waiting for perfection, it's honestly just waiting for you to begin.